Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crazy8s 2023 registration and pitch information session. Thank you so much for spending part of this awesomely sunny Saturday afternoon with us. We'll go through some housekeeping before we get to the agenda and then the rest of the event. But we definitely want to. We're mindful of you guys' time, and thank you so much again for being with us. Crazy8s is presented by the DGCBC, and shout out to our other sponsors as well. Presenting sponsors, Telefilm Canada, Creative BC, UBCP ACTRA, our platinum sponsors, IATSE 891 and Neon, gold sponsors, AFBS, silver sponsors, ACFC West and the CMPA, bronze sponsors, Tyson Media, film industry supporters, Novus TV. Educational supporters include Capilano University School of Motion Picture Arts, Emily Carr University of Art and Design, Langara Film Arts, UBC Theatre and Film, and the UBC School of Creative Writing. So just a couple of Zoom housekeeping things. As you guys have probably noticed, we are recording the session. All attendees are not on screen, but if you guys do get into the questions, the Q&A later on, then your questions will be recorded. This is just to let you guys know, and the recording will also be made publicly available later on. There is if you guys have questions for any of our guests here today, or any questions about registration and pitching, you guys should be able to see a Q&A, little bubble function thingy, bottom of your Zoom screen. So if you just click on that, it'll open a box for question and answer, and you can actually type in your questions in there. And it'll just be in a queue, and we'll see them, and then we can respond to them right at the very end of this session when we do a group conversation with all of the guests, and then it's time for us to answer all of your questions. So that's pretty much for the Zoom housekeeping. So what is coming up for the next hour and a half? Actually, Christian, that would be slide number 2. What's on? Yeah, there you go. Thanks a lot. So what's on? So first up, we'll just try and get through the logistics of Crazy8s as fast as possible, 10-15 minutes tops. What is Crazy8s and how does it work? How does the contest work? How does the registration and pitching work? We are on Film Freeway, so all of the details and further information are all on filmfreeway.com/Crazy8s. And then we are speaking with we have a couple of very recent alumni here, and alphabetical by last name. First up, we're chatting with Stephanie Izsak, the director-writer of Consumer, a Crazy8s 2022 film that just screened earlier this year. And then next up, we have Shioma Metchie, director-writer of Weeds Are Flowers too, also at Crazy8s 2022, a screening earlier this year. And following up from that, we will have a chat with Zach Lipovsky. He is a longtime Crazy8s juror, and also newsflash, way back in 2005, Crazy8s. He was director and co-writer of Crazy8s. And then after that, we'll bring back Stephanie and Kay and all have a group conversation with questions with Zach. And that's when we'll be able to get to all of your questions as well. Okay, so what is Crazy8s? It is an 8-day filmmaking challenge that provides support and funding to emerging BC-based Canadian filmmakers to help you make a professionally produced short film. So it is Vancouver's longest running short filmmaking program, and it's now coming into its 24th year. So to date, Crazy8s has produced 133 films. We are a nonprofit society. It is run by the Crazy8s Film Society, a BC-based nonprofit, and it was founded in 1999 by the Directors Guild of Canada, specifically the BC branch. And the mission from the beginning was and is to foster and incubate industry talent, right here in BC. And we do believe in equality, diversity, and in having an inclusive community, and that's why Crazy8s has been around for such a long time. We can't do this without our community, without you guys, and without the industry helping to support us, as well as emerging filmmakers. So for more about Crazy8s, go to crazy8s.film. So how does Crazy work? Like, you know, it's a contest, but how does it exactly work? So we are on Film Freeway, as mentioned, and you can actually register and submit through Film Freeway. So first up, tell us your short film concept and story in a maximum 3-minute video. So this 3-minute video would be submitted through Film Freeway. You would register for the contest and then submit this through Film Freeway. So 40 quarterfinalists are chosen by an independent video pitch jury of industry professionals. And when I say independent, I mean that no Crazy8s team member, nobody that works directly with Crazy8s, including myself, the executive director, is on this video pitch jury. So these 40 quarterfinalists, they would then go on to pitch in person. It's a 5-minute pitch plus another 5 minutes for questions from the jury. And this in-person pitch is to another independent jury of industry professionals. So that means that the video pitch jury are not the same jury that are at the in-person pitches. That's a completely separate jury. And again, like no Crazy8s, nobody that works for Crazy8s or works with Crazy8s is a member of that jury. So from these in-person pitches, 12 semifinalists are selected, and these semifinalists workshop their scripts with a professional story editor. And this process takes about 3 or 4 weeks, and then they submit a final script draft. And based on these final script drafts, 6 finalists are chosen. And each of these 6 finalist teams will each receive $1,000 in cash and an in-kind production package over $50,000 provided by the film industry sponsors and partners with Crazy8s. Mind you, you receive $1,000 in cash. That's not to say that that's all the cash that you will need. It's always a good idea coming into a Crazy8s to have a budget of your own as well, bearing in mind the kind of film that you want to make. So we do provide a lot of production assistance and post-production assistance, and the value is pretty high. So what this means is that if you successfully go through the pitching process at Crazy8s and you get to make a film and you are the top 6, the film that you make, you can dream big, basically, like, you know, like aim high, and we can help you get there. Like say you have a budget, like a 10K budget already for your short film, we can help you make that 10K like pretty much like a lot more, like in terms of production value and in terms of the quality of your final film. So these 6 finalists are provided with additionally workshops and mentorship, like the DGC BC does provide director mentors, the CMPA does provide producer mentors, for example, and they're also post-production mentors to shoot and edit your films in 8 crazy days. Literally, production and post is only the 8 days. This is why it's eight days, and that's why it's crazy. So the finished films will screen at a gala screening event and an after party. We can confirm that this year the screening will be at the center downtown, and the after party will be at Science World. I make no promises with regards to the chocolate fountain. If you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, you probably will when you get to the after party. Although like chocolate fountain does not seem to have the same ring to it as it did like pre-COVID, I have to say. So whether you like it or not, like we might have a chocolate fountain. It's just going to be a relic of the before times. Okay, so that summarizes how it works. So copyright and ownership. This is an important piece. The Crazy8s Film Society does own the copyright to the Crazy8s Gala screening version of the short film, as well as the film festival version, if any further edits are made, like after final film delivery. This is due to the funding, sponsorship, and all the union agreements that we have in place, the Crazy8s Film Society has in place to get the film made. So we do work to distribute these finished films. We do come out with Blu-rays for each year, for each year's films, and we also try to sell them to broadcasters and any other distribution methods that we can find. Upside, once all the distribution commissions and expenses are paid out, and that includes 20% that goes to UBCP, like the BC Actors Union, the remaining profits are split 50-50 between the Crazy8s Film Society and the filmmaker. So as a filmmaker, like if say you go onto a festival and you win like Best Short, any film festival award money the filmmakers keep, and also the filmmakers are responsible for submitting to film festivals and for those submission fees. Also on the upside, the filmmaker does retain the rights. The filmmakers retain the IP to produce any sequels. Or if you make a feature or a TV series, web series, or you want to base like any future product or content product on any of your characters, you can base them on your Crazy8s short. Each filmmaking team should decide internally how expenses and profits are going to be split and who has the final artistic control, as well as, for example, like say Crazy8s cuts you guys a check from, you know, from the profits from distribution. Who should the check go to, and how are you guys going to split that check? Things like that. Okay, so now also pretty important key dates for Crazy8s. October 19th is the registration and video pitch submission deadline on Freeway. So that's coming up a lot faster than you can think. It's like in about 4 weeks, and you know, like that can go by in a blink. So on November 15th, the top 40 teams are announced, and about a week after are the actual in-person pitches on November the 26th and the 27th. Now it is 2 days, but bearing in mind that there are 40 teams that are pitching, and each team takes about on average a total of 10 minutes, including the actual pitch and the questions. So that works out to about 20 teams per day for the judging, for the jury, and it's like, trust me, guys, like you do not want to be, you know, like team number 21 on one of the days when the jury is like possibly like super hangry, like, you know, kind of all glazed over after a whole day of pitching. So it's always better to have it like over 2 days. We can't tell you right now, obviously, like which day that you're going to get, but just to bear in mind that it could be on either of these 2 days. So on November the 29th, the top 12 teams are announced. And on December 7th, like barely a week after, is the first draft script deadline. So sometimes it's a good idea to have started working on your script like a little bit beforehand, just so that you don't feel like super rushed like in that 1 week. January 6th, though, is your final script submission deadline. So through the script development process, like you do have like a few weeks to massage your script with professional story editors. And on January the 18th, based on the strength of the final submitted scripts, the top 6 teams are announced. And after that, there's several production-related workshops, pre-production, production, post-production workshops with some of these mentors. And then everyone goes into production, like literally all 6 teams produce and do post between March the 10th and March the 17th. Typically, it is 3 days for production and about 5 days for post. And then all of the films must be delivered on March the 17th. And then comes the fun part. April 15th is the gala screening and after party. Like some people always ask, you know, like, well, who won Crazy8s? The answer is that the top 6 all won Crazy8s. Like, and you guys can all like celebrate together with your teams and the community and all your friends at this April 15th gala screening. And then, you know, like if you go early to Science Roll, you might actually be able to stick a fruit in the chocolate fountain and like ingest it before all of the fruit is gone. Yeah, and that's pretty much the key dates that are coming up. Now, for a little bit from our registration and casting coordinator, Darby Steves.
Hey, I'm Darby Steves, and I am the registration and casting coordinator for Crazy8s. Let's talk Film Freeway. This is the website in which you will be submitting your 3-minute video pitch to us. I would carve out about 30 minutes to read through all of the rules and regulations in fine detail. We want to make sure that you qualify properly and you have all your ducks in a row before you submit to us. After that, I would carve out another 30 minutes to submit your project video. You want to make sure all the details are correct and it looks exactly how you intend to before you send it over to us. If you still have questions after that, feel free to reach out to me at any time. My email is submissions@crazy8s.film.
Thank you, Darby. She really wanted to be here, but she wasn't able to. So what are the key eligibility requirements for Crazy8s? First up, the director, writer, producer, and lead actors must be Canadian citizens or permanent residents, as well as BC residents. Like, what is a BC resident? Basically, if you qualify for a care card, or like a health card in BC, you are a BC resident. Applicants also must be 19 plus. And the applicant, the primary applicant, also needs to be either the project's writer, director, or producer, or a combination of director writer or producer writer. We highly recommend that you not direct and produce as well, partly because of the crazy timeline to actually like get this out the door and finished. The third thing is you can't apply if you are a full-time high school student, or B, apply as director again if you have previously directed a Crazy8s film. However, you can certainly apply again as a writer, as a project writer, or as a project producer. So also please bear in mind that the completed film must be at least 5 minutes and not more than 12 minutes. That works out to about 5 to 10 script pages. And that includes the on-screen credits. So it's a total runtime. So if you guys have a story or script that is much longer than that, you kind of might want to think about editing it down to like to this length, because that's like the length is really not negotiable. So your story can be any live action genre, and that includes drama, comedy, sci-fi, like horror, fantasy, even a musical. We have done musicals, but it can be animation or a doc. And your story also must be your original idea, or a story that you have the rights or the permission to tell. Like, so chain of title, it has to be locked in. And you can also tell a story that's adapted from work in the public domain. I guess the quick way to look at what's in the public domain is, like, say if the person that created this work has passed on like at least 50 years, then it falls into the public domain at that point. So that's kind of how you can kind of tell. So now, like, we'll get Darby back again to give you some answers to the top frequently asked questions from Darby.
A few frequently asked questions to help you along in your journey. First up is, can my pitch be longer than 3 minutes? Unfortunately, no. The jury has to filter through hundreds of submissions, and they just don't have the time to watch your 10-minute masterpiece, but I am sure it is fantastic. Can we have any non-Canadian or non-permanent residents of Canada on our creative team? Unfortunately, no. Your writer, director, and producer all have to be Canadian citizens or residents of Canada. Your cast members also have to be all Canadian. In some very rare circumstances, UBCP ACTRA will grant us a pass to have one non-Canadian cast member, but it is very rare. Does my pitch have to be shot on a professional camera? No. Stick with your strong story and do your best with the tools that you have. Film Freeway is confusing. What do I do? Don't panic and email me at submissions@crazy8s.film. Good luck, and hopefully we'll meet in person on November 26th and 27th for the in-person pitches of the top 40 teams.
Thank you, Darby. So that begs the question, what exactly is in a video pitch? Well, Darby pretty much said it. Like, you don't necessarily need like a really complicated camera setup or lighting setup to do this. What the basics for the video pitch would be a slate, which is basically you saying your name, your role, are you the project's like director, writer, producer, and also the working title for your project. You don't have to pitch alone. So if you want to pitch with your entire crew, totally do it. So you can pitch with your team if you already have one. But if you don't really have one in place yet, or you can't get together to actually shoot this pitch video, don't worry about it. You can also pitch on your own. And yes, definitely, please tell us your awesome idea, which is your concept for your film. Please start with a log line. A log line is basically a one-line summary of your story. And please do include the ending of your story. Do not leave it out as a surprise. The jury will definitely want to know how your film is going to end. the reasons why you should be the one to tell the story as well are really important for the jury to know. Like, why should you be the one to tell us? Do you have a particular connection to this story or to this concept, or do you have a really strong vision for the film? Like, do you really feel strongly it should be in black and white and look like it's set in the Bahamas or something like that? Like, the jury would definitely want to know these things. Also, if it seems like it might be a potentially complicated film to pull off in 8 days, like say maybe you want like a dawn shot in a desert with camels or something. I know like crazier things have actually happened at Crazy8s. Don't ask. No, please do ask, but later. So please mention what resources you have to make the film. Especially say if you have, if you know someone with a backyard that looks like a desert and has a pet camel that you can shoot in for 3 days. That would be awesome. And also really importantly, show your passion for this project. I mean, Crazy8s is indie. It's, you know, and indie thrives on like Red Bulls and passion and creativity. So, you know, like don't be afraid to like go all out in your video pitch, to be all like, yeah, I really want to do this, and like how much you believe. Show the jury how much you believe in your idea and also in your ability. So that's it. If you make it to the top 40, what about the in-person pitch? How is that different from the video pitch? Essentially, all of the things that were in the video pitch, plus, in this case, the director must attend. So if, say, you are the main applicant and say you're the writer for the project, the director should be on board by that point and they must attend or virtually attend. Like say we can Zoom them in. To the in-person pitch. Again, you can pitch on your own or with your team. That said, if you are the writer or the producer, then the director would also be pitching with you. So by the day of your in-person pitch as well, we do highly recommend that the project have a writer attached and also ideally a lead producer, because production comes up a lot faster than anyone thinks, like after the in-person pitches, like if you move on to become a semi-finalist. So it's always a good idea to line up your key creatives sooner rather than later in your process. And also please do on the day bring a short synopsis for your story and also the bio of the director, and if possible, lay it out on a single page as a handout. So ideally, again, also because the first draft of your script is due so shortly after the top 6 are announced, it's ideal for you to already have a treatment or at least like a few early draft pages of your script. Although you don't need to bring those with you to the in-person pitch, but it's just a good idea to have this prepared. And this is mainly a verbal pitch. So Crazy8s is definitely mindful, the jury is mindful that, you know, like they're not necessarily looking for a whole ton of bells and whistles or anything. What they want is to hear from you and who you are and like your idea for how you're going to make this film and why you want to make this film. You can certainly use artwork or props. Like say if you have like, if you want to set this in like a future world or anything like that, if you have any concept art, certainly bring that along with you. If say your film like involves like the use of like say maybe a hat, like a hat as a motif, as a thing in your film, certainly bring a hat or bring the hat, in fact, like along with you and use it as a prop, like when you're pitching. There is no AV provided. So if you guys actually want to bring a laptop and project anything, you guys will have to actually bring that stuff yourself. And bearing in mind that that'll cut into the 5 minutes that you have to actually pitch. So it may be, you know, like, so you might want to think about that. So in terms of screening reels and that, like this is not really, this is a verbal pitch again. So there's no AV provided in the room. Okay, so that's pretty much that when it comes to the logistics of this. So let's now actually hear from recent Crazy8s alumna about their pitching experience. First up, we have Stephanie Izsak. She is the director writer again of Consumer that premiered at Crazy8s 2022. Stephanie, as a performer, she has appeared on CW's The 100. I'm just reading here, so if I'm looking off screen, it's not. Yeah, I know. It's not. Yes. It's not The Apocalypse, Stephanie. I'm like, seriously, this is just.
Go
You've
on.
been on. You've been on the 100, Netflix's Firefly Lane, Lifetime's A Mother Fury, and you were in your third season of Central Cities as Officer Daisy Corber on The Flash. Yeah. So as a writer-director, your first horror short live feed, won Scariest Film, is that right, at Blood and Guts in 2019?
That's right.
Okay, and it's been screening at festivals all around North America. And your follow-up screenplay was Parabola, which was also a Crazy8s film, I think. Or no? Different
of my short film, because that short film exists. That's going to happen down the line somewhere. But no, it was just a script at this point. It's a script that went to the Austin Film Festival.
Yeah, no, I see. Yeah. And you have a BFA from Bishops, and you're a Studio 58 grad, which like, yes. So again, like just to go over the credits, Consumer is a short horror directed by Stephanie Izak, written by Stephanie Izak and Toby Marks, produced by Kevin Keegan, Laurie Watt, Nick Altabelli, and Kira Barnes. And the logline is a 13-year-old girl consumed by toxic beauty standards stumbles upon an unconventional and disturbing way to lose weight. Let's take a look at the video pitch, Stephanie's video pitch for Consumer.
I'm Stephanie Izak, co-writer and director. My first film, Live Feed, won Scariest Film at the 2019 Blood and Guts Film Festival.
I'm Toby Marks, co-writer. I've been screenwriting for 5 years in LA, New York, and London.
Our film Consumer explores how social media leads to destructive behavior in teens through the delicious lens of horror. Tell them the log line.
A 13-year-old girl consumed by toxic beauty standards stumbles upon an unconventional and disturbing way to lose weight.
How compelling.
Our protagonist, Rain, is trampled by Instagram expectations, desperate to be a viral version of herself, terrified of never measuring up.
Rain's world is a soft, pink, plush-colored childhood about to collide with the barbed underwire hell that is being a teenage girl. Social media has taught Rain that her problems would be solved with one thing: acquiring the perfect body. We meet Rain on her first day of high school and quickly encounter the various antagonists to her self-esteem. A mother projecting her own body issues.
An older brother with the infuriating metabolism of a purebred.
And the top pedigree senior girls whose mere existence is an affront.
The only thing worse than these outside forces is the voice in Rain's head.
That's me, darling. She's a real bitch. Says you.
Rain's only solace is in her beloved horse Peanut Butter. But when her biology class learns about tapeworms and her teacher jokes about the parasite's fat-sucking potential, Rain gets an idea.
A bloody delicious idea. A desperate Rain acquires a tapeworm and to the audience's horror, ingests it. But the next day, she wakes up and her world has changed.
The things that used to make her feel small have lost their grip.
Even the voice in her head is on her side. You look splendid, darling.
As this parasite grows inside of her, Rain begins to feel a new, insatiable hunger.
Feed us.
Rain becomes a monster of her own making, consumed by this hunger that she can't control.
Consumed by a pressure to be better.
Be more.
Consume more. We are hungry.
This all culminates in Rain eating the only thing in her life that hasn't been part of her insecurity. Her horse.
In the age of social media and toxic wellness culture, conditions like orthorexia and body dysmorphia have exploded. I should know I dealt with these issues for about 10 years.
Being a teenage girl is a waking nightmare, one even Kubrick would be scared of.
And like Kubrick, we'll employ a number of visual motifs to tell Rain's story, including horse imagery from Rain's coltish bedroom to the cavalry of senior girls, evoking Rain's shifting point of view.
We'll use a color palette of soft, delicate pinks, increasingly infused with vibrant red, as Rain's innocence spirals into bloodlust. Think John Hughes.
Meets John Carpenter.
And you get Consumer. Thanks for watching. You hungry?
Darling, I'm starving.
Awesome. Stephanie, how many times have you pitched to Crazy8s?
That was my first time.
That was your first time? Wow. Yeah, like what made you decide to pitch to Crazy8s?
Well, actually, because I had it's not called Parabola, but Parabola script. That is a really personal story. It's a script that I'm really, really proud of, and I plan on directing it. And before I tackled that one, I wanted some more directing experience. So I had this idea sort of flitting in my mind for the tapeworm as an allegory for toxic wellness culture. And so I just decided to jump in.
Cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual video pitch itself, like how did you put that together? Can you walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I strive for simplicity in so many aspects of my life, but I never seem to be able to pull that off. So I'm always so extra. So we were lucky that we had a connection to a stable pretty early. Nick Altabelli, my fantastic producer, comes from the riding world. And so we got a connection with a stable. They were very gracious, let us come out and shoot for the day. My DP, Rob Zastowski, is somebody that I've worked with before. So he came out, also somebody who's extra, doesn't know how to do things halfway. He brought his whole lighting kit. I was like, Rob, couple chairs and a camera. And he's like, no. I'm going to set everything up. And it ended up looking great. And Toby and I worked on the script together. We are both actors. So we sat and we drilled that thing and we timed it. But it was a mouthful. And yeah, I mean, I think it was really important for me that the pitch had a lot of the sort of energy and tone that I dreamt for the film in it, just to sort of give a taste of what I could put together as a director. And, you know, even with the talented people I was bringing around me. So we had a lot of fun with it, to be honest, you know, from finding the Barbie and everything. It's amazing. I think once you start committing to a project, like things just come out of the woodwork. Like there were a lot of like that perfect Barbie, the equestrian Barbie just like was given to us and it was perfect. And we ended up using it, you know, we couldn't use it in the film obviously, but yeah. So just little things like that we were able to pull a lot of little things together to make something that really, I think, spoke to what the film would end up being.
Right. Yeah. And it's that you can totally see that in the video pitch. But say you weren't actually able to like get to put everything together in terms of the location and all the lighting and everything with your DP, and then like, did you have a plan B? Like, you know, okay, so this is like the blue sky version of the pitch that we want to do, but failing that, did you have a plan B?
No, because we worked hard on that one and we shot it with plenty of time. It wasn't super last minute or anything like that. So that was really our only plan. I don't think you need all of that in a pitch. Like you don't. As I said, I strive for simplicity. I just don't commit to it. So this was the pitch that really represented me, not only me, the director, but just me, the person too. And that's, I think, for all of you who are going to pitch, you know, I think being really intentional with how you want to present your vision. What kind of a director do you see yourself as? And, you know, if you have the resources or if you can pull together the resources to reflect that in your pitch, great. If not, you know, it's really about communicating why you love this story and why this story is important to you. Because if it's not really, really important to you to tell, you're not going to be able to convince someone else to tell it as well, which is essentially, in my eyes, what a pitch is.
Right. So you actually already partly answered like what was going to be my next question, which is like, what do you feel is essential to a video pitch? Is there anything else that you want to?
Just really your passion. I mean, you know, the Crazy8s jury wants to invest not only in this really clever, you know, idea that you have, but in you and who you are and the passion that you're going to bring to the table, because that passion is what's going to drive you through these insane 8 days and all of the months leading up to it. You're going to need that passion, I'm telling you. So yeah, it's really about allowing, you know, being really honest with yourself about why this story means something to you and why you love it so much. And then doing your best to communicate that. I mean, of course, you know, you have to tick all the boxes with your log line and everything like that. But I really think like bringing your authentic passion for the story is one of the most important things.
So for that, like, it sounds like you guys shot for like a day, the better part of a day.
Yeah, we were out there for a good 8 hours, I think.
Yeah, for pretty much like a full day. And then like in terms of post, like how quickly did you blast through that for the
I'm so blessed to have Rob at my side. He edited and, you know, I went over and we sort of like, you know, did the final touches, everything together and did some sound and my, you know, Jordan, our who sound design consumer, also did the sound design for the pitch. So I was lucky. I have a little bit of a community around me already, and everybody was enthusiastic to sort of get their hands on something early. So everybody contributed to the pitch.
Okay.
So it took us like that whole day. And then I think Rob did a rough edit that night. And then the next day I went over. So it was like a 2-day affair.
Okay. Yeah. So noted everyone that if you have like if all your ducks in a row, you could probably blast through this in about a weekend and achieve like something similar. So yeah, which is great. Like it's great that you already had like a sort of like the idea for this going in. It sounds like it might have been a little more formed than just, oh yeah, like maybe I should make a film about this. So how early in your process did you actually have like say like your logline treatment or even a first draft?
So I actually just met Toby, my co-writer, about a month before we did this in a coffee shop randomly, and we were both writers and we wanted to meet more writers, and then I pitched this idea to her, and I had the bones of the idea already. I had sort of something along the lines of a log line. And then together we had a full treatment, I would say, by the time we got close to top 12, or when we were in top 40, we were like already like, okay, we've got to, because again, like I can't do anything small. And I think it really comes from my insecurity. I'm like, okay, I have to know exactly what this is before I can keep talking about it. So we had, Toby's a big beat sheet writer. So we had like a full beat sheet by the time we were close to the end of the top 40 process. And then I was just texting with her, and we had our first draft when we were, I think we have to hand it in when we're top 12, right? We have a week. So yeah. We were pretty much done before the top 12 was announced, our first draft. We sort of like had it, and then we refined that week. Yeah.
Okay. Did you find that was that helpful, like in terms of the script development process, like once you entered into that process, to have had prepared so much in advance?
I think it helped. Yeah, I think it helped me a lot because we just didn't feel rushed. We'd spent so much time on it. We started early. We spent so much time on it. By the time it came to working with Jess Bradford, who was our amazing story editor, we had we knew why we'd made all the choices we made. We just had more time with it. We'd already done our own revisions. So for me, that's how I like to work. I like to be over prepared. I like to be early. Again, probably insecurity.
Doesn't sound like a bad idea though. Yeah. Yeah, because like I think it can be hard sometimes to really bang out like a good script, like with decent dialogue and everything, like in a couple of weeks,
the editing phases also goes over the holidays, which is tricky because you're also, and we knew that, so I was like, let's have it done, let's have a good draft done.
Right. Well, in terms of that, then like the script development process hasn't always been a part of Crazy8s. Like when Crazy8s started, it didn't have like as much of a script development process necessarily. Did you find did you find that helpful for you at all?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Jess is amazing. I think it's always essential to good storytelling to get, good experienced eyes on your work. And even the notes that we would get, it's really useful to have a number of people giving you all of those notes, because then you can sort of look at that and say, okay, what notes are consistent, what notes are being repeated. I think it was good for Toby and I to see certain things that weren't clear, and it absolutely helped us tell a more succinct, clear story. But also some notes are just not helpful for the kind of movie you want to make. And I do think that is being able to differentiate between what note is definitely going to make your story better and you welcome and you're going to incorporate, and then a note that comes that maybe is just intended for not a version of your film that isn't the one you're trying to make. And being able to differentiate those, I think, is something that comes with experience, but that's why Crazy8s is such a great opportunity to start, feeling out your own instincts as a creative.
So there was a bit of a learning curve, I guess, then, like during the script development process, but at the end of the day, like good to have gone through.
Absolutely. And, you're going to make the choices that you make, and none of the films that come out the other side are perfect. But I think it's really important. I had another director that I talked to when I was sort of preparing to do this. She said to me, it's better to, at the end of the day, see a movie and see things that were your choice, especially less in the writing, but more in the directing. Like, you made those calls and it was authentic to your choice, but maybe even it was the wrong choice, than to see a film that was just a complete, the result of just everybody else's suggestions. And it doesn't feel like you, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And that's part of the whole indie thing as well, is learning by doing.
Sure.
As well as, like taking feedback, like where you can, but in that way, right? But at the same time, sticking to your story, sticking to your vision. So that's always like a little bit of that fine balance, and sometimes you just got to like get into the fire, and then you make those decisions, and then you just learn from them, and then next thing. That's awesome. I mean, all that said, it's very excited to see like where Consumer goes. So let's watch the trailer for Consumer, and see you back for the group session.
I know. This is Rain.
Let's see in a stone.
Today is her first day of high school. Sometimes Rain wishes she could cut the flesh away from her bones.
Tapeworms are parasitic invertebrates.
My aunt got one in Bolivia. She lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks.
This is it, darling. Everything you've ever wanted. Feed us!
What are you doing?
We are hungry!
Stop it! Shut up!
Hungry! Hungry!
I don't want you anymore. Please stop it! Stop it!
Yay for Consumer. Very, very like excited to see where it goes next. And next up, our next guest is Shioma Metchie. She is the director writer of Weeds or Flowers too, also at Crazy8s 2022. Welcome, Kay. So I'm gonna like just briefly go through your bio. So Kay has worked in the film industry for the past 6 years as a script supervisor, and she has worked alongside and learned from many, many amazing female directors, including Amanda Tapping, Chen Coley, Jen Gerard, Motherland. Jem Gerard, Motherland, Nimisha Mukherjee, Motherland and the Imperfects, Leslie Hope, and Kristen Lehman of The Order. And recently, you began working, and in fact, you're now working as a supervising producer for MOWs, I think. Okay, awesome. And you have directed 2 self-produced shorts, co-directed a music video for a visiting hip-hop artist. And you enjoy creating stories that take the ordinary everyday life and expand it into something extraordinary, which is exemplified, I think, by Weeds or Flowers too. Dark comedy, directed and written by Shioma Metchie yourself. The producers are Vivian Davidson Castro, Valerie Lopez, and Alyssa Costello. And the logline: when a woman's budding jealousy takes root, she'll do anything to get her green thumbs. Let's now view the Weeds or Flowers 2 video pitch.
On a beautiful spring morning, newlyweds Evelyn and Ashton drive up to their very first family home, a symbol of them becoming true adults. As they begin to drag their boxes into their house, their neighbor, Sasha, saunters up her driveway, just coming home after a night of partying. Evelyn decides to go full force into this adulting thing and decides to transform the neglected front yard into a beautiful garden. She does all the necessary research, reads every blog available, the most recent books, buys the most expensive tools, and the cutest of gardening gloves. But all that prep is wasted. It becomes very apparent that Evelyn does not have any natural talent for growing seeds, No matter how early she waters them, no matter what special food she feeds them, no matter how much she talks to them, the plants she buys seem to wither immediately, preferring death over being in Evelyn's soil. And what makes pulling up the dead stalks even worse is that Evelyn's neighbor, Sasha, seems to have a natural green thumb. Evelyn begins to evolve into a cycle of jealous obsession. She fantasizes about the life she could have if Sasha's garden was her own. Her obsession slowly begins to warp her attachment to reality. After another failed attempt at sowing some seeds, Evelyn decides to take measures into her own hands. One night, she breaks into Sasha's house, knocks her out, and straps her to a table. Moonlight reflects in Evelyn's eyes as she tells Sasha that green thumbs are wasted on her. Evelyn raises a serrated knife in one hand as blood drips from the stump on another. The next day, Evelyn is in her garden as police officers come out of Sasha's house. They inform Evelyn that her neighbor was murdered the night before and to contact them if she thinks of anything. As they walk away, they compliment Evelyn on her beautiful orchid that she just planted. Hi, my name is Shioma, and I'm the writer and director for the short comedy horror Weeds Are Flowers Too. The seed of inspiration for this short film has been in my mind for a while. There's this worry that has been slowly creeping forward as I get older and I start to think about family planning, and that is what if it turns out that I'm not able to get pregnant? What if I spent all these years taking the pill and being super safe only to find out that I am totally and completely barren? It is something that I am unable to stop thinking about. It's that baseless fear that informs the tone of this script. The film will start out bright and saturated, opening and inviting, but as Evelyn attempts at growing her gardens fail, her side of the fence will become dull, gray-toned, while Sasha's will remain colorful and inviting. The grass is literally greener on the other side. The other theme that I'm exploring in this film, alongside with the obvious fertility aspect, is the idea of jealousy. I will readily admit that jealousy is the carnal sin that I suffer from the most. The way that jealousy makes it so that you are incapable of feeling happy for your friends' accomplishments because you can't help but judge yourself and compare yourself to them, and how jealousy becomes this kind of sick and twisted obsession where all you can focus on is what you don't have. I'm hoping that with Crazy8s I'll be able to make a visual extravaganza that explores my fears and shortcomings in a fun and crazy way.
Whew. How about that pitch? Whoa, and okay, because like we have chatted like before this. Like I know that this is not perhaps your first pitch to Crazy8s. Can you tell us? Have you pitched to Crazy8s before?
This was on my own. I think this was my fourth or fifth time pitching, and then I had like joined other teams in the top 40. I think 2 other times. This was like my fourth video pitch that I've made.
Wow, and like for your fourth, like in as many years, or like over like how many years are we talking about?
I've basically been pitching to Crazy8s, I think, since I started working in the film industry, which was about 8 years ago. So on and off, I've done a pitch about 7 times in 8 years.
Well, that is commitment and dedication for sure to your craft. As an artist. Can I ask then, like, what made you decide in the first place to pitch to Crazy8s, and then what made you keep pitching to Crazy8s?
I mean, what made me decide to pitch to Crazy8s is one, it being like the biggest independent film festival and supportive independent film creation program that Vancouver has. I wanted, even before I'd done my first short films, I thought it'd be a great idea to try my hand at it in a supportive environment, getting some mentorship or working alongside and collaborating with other people who might be in the same boat as me of making their first short film. And then I just kept on pitching because I guess my personality, I'm just like, eventually something will stick. The reason why I'm still hoping to one day become a famous actor is, well, eventually one role will be perfect for me and that will jettison myself out to the stratosphere. The same with filmmaking. At some point I knew that a story or a pitch I had would work for Crazy8s. And I just wanted to keep on trying until I hit the right one.
Wow, yeah, and I guess like for in terms of yourself personally, I guess the fourth time's the charm or the fifth time's the charm.
Yeah, this was my third time being top 12. So yeah. However, yeah, I think I've pitched 7 times. I think I've gone to top 40 5 times, and then top 12 3 times. So
That's a strong record. Like, and not that we're trying to tell everyone that that's what they should be doing necessarily,
Yeah.
but like, do you feel that like having gone through the experience like that many times, like did that help you kind of like maybe come back and try something different the next time, or hone your pitches in some ways, like in whether in person or video?
I think it definitely helped me figure a way to hone my pitches. A lot of my pitches were always kind of the same, of me sitting in front of my computer, in front of my same wall, speaking to the camera. That one had stock video. Other ones I've done had like just photos that I found on Google spliced in. I think I've been able to refine, I guess it's just like the experience of understanding of how to make a 3-minute pitch. Like I said, I think when I first started pitching, I feel as though the length was 5 minutes, and then it became 4 minutes, and then it became 3 minutes. So like just cramming everything down as fast and saying the things I knew I needed to say as fast as possible was probably helpful with experience. Other than that, I don't know if it really changed that much.
What about the in-person pitch though, in terms of yeah, because you've been through
Yeah.
that process, like yeah, a few times. How much did your pitching style evolve or progress, I guess, like as you went through those like multiple times?
Again, I knew, like, because I think it's somewhat advantageous for people who are on the performing side to do the in-person pitches, because I just looked at it as though it was a monologue, and I wrote out what I knew I was going to pitch, timed myself, forced my boyfriend to listen to me multiple times and time myself. And I just treated it as though I was doing a monologue on stage. Yeah, and then because I had gone through it so many times, I kind of already anticipated what the questions were going to be, and I had my answers prepared for those, for all the different variations of things that the judges might ask. And then the one thing that I had when I was in top 40 that I can't remember if it was Kaylee or Sam Spears told me one of the first times that I got to top 40 was to put a bunch of photos on the other side of my one sheet that like sort of helped the judges visualize. And so I would do that and print it on nice paper from Staples. I'd pay whatever it was to get 13 copies printed, had it both sides, might add like one time that I did it, I made cookies and gave cookies out to everyone. This time I'd put little fake flowers on my pitch page and gave it to everyone. So like adding a little bit of personality or something that's unique to the story that you're about to tell the judges about.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted temporarily. Yeah, that's cool. Like, but then I guess how long does it typically take you now to like actually like put your video pitch together? Or how long did it take you by the time, by this last time? And in terms of the in-person pitch, like how long's your prep for that?
So for my video pitch, I mean, I think all of the pitches I'd done that I'd gotten to that level, I had already had a first draft of my script done. So I already knew the beginning, middle, and end of it. And especially for Weeds or Flowers too, I had already done a pitch package for the Harold Greenberg Fund. So I'd already written out a bunch of summaries and questions and ideas and director's statements. So I just kind of copied and pasted that into a 2-minute long summary. That process, I mean, is the longest process. Unlike Stephanie, whose video pitches was so beautiful, mine was literally writing and editing and then just sitting for like 2-ish hours trying to say the thing in a non-robotic way, and then finding all the stock video, throwing it on, maybe putting a little bit of a color time on it and then sending it off. So the actual process of filming was very fast. It's just the process of writing and knowing everything I wanted to say, which took a longer time.
So still probably, it sounds like probably a couple of days ish to get everything together. Yeah, in total. Right. And so for the in-person pitch then, like typically, like do you prep? Because it sounds like you've mainly prepped like on your own, and you mainly pitched on your own as well. So like how long does it take you to prepare, say, for an in-person pitch? Just to give folks an idea as well of like how long it can take.
Yeah, because I feel like I can't remember the exact time frame between when you know that you're top 40 to when you pitch. I think it's like a week or two. So I took my original pitch in the pitch video that I'd done. And then because you now have 5 minutes to pitch, memorized that as well as I could, and then memorized like talking about why I am the best person to tell this story. So on and off, and I think I was also working during that time. So on and off, I would like write my script and then memorize it for a couple of days and then start practicing it, editing it down. If it was over 5 minutes, practicing it again, editing it down, printing off the materials. So yeah, I mean, like on and off, I used the entire 2 weeks that we had. But really, you can just take, because the in-person judges haven't seen your video pitch, you can just take what you've said in your video pitch, memorize it, and then add more about yourself and pitch in person.
So it could take like you on and off, like working on it like over the entire interval between when you find out that you're top 40 and the actual in-person pitch, or you could like try and like bang that out again, like probably a day or two maybe, in terms of like just sheer number of hours.
Yeah, depending on how fast it takes you to memorize a 5-minute script.
Right. Yeah, which once again, I guess if you do have like a performing background or a public speaking background, maybe that could be helpful, but maybe yeah, a little bit. Cool. But you did touch on, I guess you seem to have had like either a really clear idea, like almost like treatment level idea of like of what your script was going to be, like going into your in-person pitch almost, like at what point in your process like did you feel that you actually needed like a full like first script draft, or did you have one before as you were going through?
I had already had a first draft because, like I said, I originally pitched this script to the Harold Greenberg Fund, and you need to have a first draft for that. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, my other two that I'd gotten to top 12 as well, I'd already had a first draft. There were all the scripts I had pitched were things that I had written a couple years before that I was now like, oh, I want to pitch this one and see if this one gets through. And so simply just because like, yeah, your first draft, once you get chosen for top 12, you have to submit it in like a week.
Yeah, it's due literally, it's like a week.
Yeah, it's best to have at some point, even like if you get to top 40, to start thinking about writing your script. Because even if you don't get to top 12, then you have a script and you can make it with other people on your own or pitch it again next year.
Fair enough. And well, and plus, I guess if you think about it, like, you know, the script development process like it's about 3-4 weeks, like, but it is over the holidays, as Stephanie mentioned, and it's not really that much time really to really put something together. So like in terms of the actual development process, then like with the editors and that, like what did you find worked for you during that phase?
So for Weeds or Flowers 2, my story editor was Kat Montague, who was great. And again, the third person that I had. I had found one of the things I'd learned through the experience of being in top 12 the other 2 times was that I needed to find a way not to lose the story I wanted to tell, despite what notes I got from my story editor and despite the notes that I got from my producers. Because yes, honestly, the first 2 times I got to top 12 at the end of the story editing process, I didn't even like the script that I had anymore because I kept on trying to fit it into what I thought would get selected, making it not something that I felt attached to or spoke about me as a creative. And like I said, in the women in TV and film thing, and what Stephanie kind of mentioned was that when you get to that process, you have to really think about the note behind the note and not just taking whatever the producer has said as literal fact. If they're like, oh, I think we should cut out this section, think about, oh, why are they saying that? Is this scene dragging a little bit? Okay, let me rework things instead of just being like, okay, yeah, I'll cut off that scene. Or yeah, I'll add more of this or that. Like, what are they wanting? And figuring out how to stay true to yourself while addressing the note.
Yeah, I feel that's really important. Like even as a creative of any kind, to really always try and get to the note behind the note, because otherwise, the feedback process almost becomes counterproductive. Because it's really good then that you had like a really strong idea, like not only of what your story was and who the characters were, but also like even like you had script drafts like pretty early on as well. I feel well, yeah, and that said, like super exciting. Let's watch the trailer for Weezer Flowers 2 and see you at the group conversation. Yeah.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, are you a gardener?
My first time.
You make it look really cool. I'm like, how hard can it be, right?
Whoa, nice garden.
Inspired the name to join the Green Thumb cult, huh?
I think she's just doing it for fun.
Oh! Flowers are growing like wildfire. I can hardly keep up.
I did everything right.
It's just a garden.
I thought this was something we could do together, but no. But you have given me nothing. What can I say? I guess I'm just blessed with green thumbs.
That was awesome. Yeah, like so hang out to not only hear the chat with our next guest, Zach Lipovsky, but also Kay and Stephanie will be back to chat with a little later on. Hi Zach, how's it going?
Good, sorry, I'm in the car, but I'm doing well.
No, it's all good. Thank you for taking the time, and I apologize, we're running slightly behind, but it's great to have you. So for those who may or may not be familiar with Zach, he is I'm just going to go through your bio. Sure. Don't mind me while I do that. Zach is a Emmy-nominated director, and you began your career as a director. Is that right? With Crazy8s 2005, your Crazy8s 2005 entry.
Yeah.
Crazy8s, yeah, and it was used as part of your audition for Spielberg's filmmaking competition On the Lot, and you placed 5th.
I did, yep, 5th in the world.
Yeah, out of 12,000 guys, not 1,200, 12,000 directors worldwide, and apparently you were the only Canadian.
Yeah.
Who entered, yeah, and also the youngest person at the time, I guess, to make it to the top 18. Oh, okay, so I did my homework.
You nailed every stat. That was good.
Thank goodness. Yeah, I know. So since then you've gone on to direct and produce like a whole bunch of stuff, like TV as well as like features, sci-fi TNT, Lionsgate, Legendary, Universal, and Disney. You were the producing director for the award-winning series Mecha X4, and the live-action feature adaptation of Kim Possible. So you're a theatrical indie feature freaks, biggest Canadian sale at TIFF 18. Woohoo, woohoo. I totally watched it. I actually really enjoyed it. It was,
Thank you.
Yeah. Although I don't know again if enjoy is the right word necessarily. Like there's a lot of freaky stuff happens in it, but it was a real fun ride. Congrats on that. And apparently it also won the Best Emerging BC Filmmaker Award at VIFF that year, 18 as well.
Yep. That's true.
And when it got onto Netflix, it was in the top 10 for 2 weeks, like worldwide, like around the world.
In North America, but yeah.
In North America, okay, yeah, in North America, important to note that. But still, that's pretty crazy, for 2 weeks. And you're also on the National Executive Board of the DGC, National Director Division Chair, and you also are the founder and lead designer of Shotlister, which apparently is industry standard in shot listing used by over 50,000 filmmakers. Tell me.
That's right.
Yes. Is that
And
number more now?
and sponsor of the Crazy8s too.
Woo! Yes, and sponsor the Crazy8s. We will definitely sneak that in there. Thank you. Yeah, no, totally. So just to give people an idea of like what a little bit about the people that were behind Crazy8. So it was a comedy. It was Crazy8s 2005, directed by yourself, and you co-wrote that as well with Derek Blee.
Yep.
I think. Yeah, and you had some folks help you produce it. Jesse Lennox Trender.
Yep.
And Niall McNeil Richardson.
Yep. And Chris Ferguson as well. Yeah.
And Chris Ferguson. Yeah. Okay, of course. So the log line is Jimmy Smith wakes up 5 minutes late for his own wedding, with 4 blocks between him and the rest of his life. Yeah. Zach's like, yes, those were the days, the memories, never want to do that again. Yeah.
That was a long time ago. That was 17, what is that, 17 years ago?
It was a little, it's been a hot minute. For sure. Yeah, it's been a hot minute. It's been a late hot minute. So welcome, Zach, to this session. And since then, like, you've continued to support Crazy8s, which is really awesome. Mainly as a juror.
Yeah, so I've been on the jury, the in-person jury, for many years, more years than I can remember. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think was it 2017? I think on 2017 I was on the in-person jury, and I think you were there for that as well. Yeah. That was the one time. Yeah. So full disclosure, guys, like that, like anyone who's here, like that was way before I was involved with Crazy8s directly anyway. So yeah. So my statement that like no Crazy8s team member, like is actually a member of the jury still stands. It's true. Yeah, I know, right? So I know it's been a hot minute, but why did you decide to do Crazy8s back in 2005? Like, can you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing sort of anything I could do to become a director. I was making shorts, with my friends on weekends, and I was helping them with all their shorts on their weekends, and just being on as many sets as I could. It was at a time where digital video was just starting to be possible. So there was tons of 24-hour, 40-hour film festivals, and Bloodshots was happening, and Crazy8s was still at the time, even back then, the king of them all. And if you basically wanted to, present yourself as a director to the town, that was the best way to do it. And so me and my group of friends got together, and they didn't have video pitching back then, so it was just in-person pitching. And I had pitched the year before so poorly that they used it in the gag reel at the main event, where at the main screening, they kept cutting to my pitch over and over again. Back when they used to show the pitches leading into the actual films, and mine was so bad that they kept cutting to it. Luckily, I was out of the country at the time. And then, but I learned a lot, and that led to my pitch the next year, which got in, and then that was sort of the film that I started using to get the rest of the ball rolling and become, a full-time director.
That's awesome. Like, that part I did not actually know. I started going to Crazy8 screenings like probably sometime in the aughts, but like back when they were still screening at the Vogue. But but I don't know if I was at that exact one, because I would probably have remembered if I was like, is that
Well,
so I guess
very much a nobody at the time. So yeah.
Well, so I guess the take home, the note then is don't be afraid to fail, because you can learn a lot from it.
That's the only way to learn, I think. Yeah.
Right. Well, in that case, then, in terms of pitching, being mindful that I guess video pitches weren't a thing like when you were, like, I don't know if have you actually been a juror like on for video pitches before for Crazy8s? Because if not, then.
Yeah, no, I've never been on the video pitch jury. I've always been on the in-person jury, which is, a different experience for sure. Sometimes we get to see the videos. Sometimes when we're deliberating the in-person pitches, once in a while we watch the video pitches. Usually when there's a few projects on the bubble, we'll sometimes go back to those and watch them, because they tend to be more visual. So if there's some visual part that we're not entirely clear on, but that's pretty rare. It's usually only 1 or 2 a year.
Right. So then in terms of in-person pitches as a juror, and given that you've been on the in-person pitch jury for quite some time, like what do you look for? You know, not necessarily saying what makes the best in-person pitch, but what do you look for?
Yeah, I mean, I look for a bunch of different things. I think the first is really a beginning, middle, and end. You would be shocked how few stories actually have a beginning, middle, and end. A lot of times they also have an ending, but feel like they shouldn't tell it to you because maybe they're being mysterious or put you on a cliffhanger, but that does not work. You should very much have a very clear beginning, middle, and end. And what I think people miss about that, most films are very lacking in having a basic arc for their main character, which is kind of shocking. Most people come in with a really great inciting incident, the thing that kicks the story off, and they come up with a vague way that the story ends. But most people give almost no thought to how the character changes. Or if you ask them how the character changes, they don't have a very easy, simple way of explaining it, which means that it's not fully baked yet in their head. So for me, that's one of the key things I look for, because the directors that do have a clear idea on how the character begins and how the character ends, if they have that clarity and they can explain that, then probably the rest of the meat on the bone will all land in place. Because without having a character shift, I mean, it depends on every project. Not every project has one, but most need one. And when that isn't figured out, a lot of the other things start to fall flat. And then I think the other main thing that has the biggest impact on any in-person pitch by far, which you saw in both the previous videos that you guys just showed, was what we call the why me, which is basically, why are you making this movie? Why are you the only person who can make this movie? Not that every film has to be an autobiography, but there does have to be a reason that you are the author of this story, that you have the perspective or the vision for bringing a perspective onto this material that nobody else has. Whatever the material is, you know, it could still be a silly comedy, it could still be a crazy action movie, but something at its core could only be told by you. And if you don't have that, I guarantee that 12 other directors will, and or 40 other directors will, and you won't get through to the next round. Because without that piece, other directors, when they explain why they want to make this movie and why they're the only ones who can, and what about them is unique in creating this piece of art, it makes the material so much more engaging and interesting. And even if their story isn't fully worked out yet, the jury often has faith that it will get worked out, because it's coming from such a personal place. So if you don't have that, and a lot of jury members, like one of the directors last year, I think it was last year or the year before, was debating between a few ideas of what they should pitch. And they asked me, and I said, whichever one is the most personal, whichever one is the only one that only you could make. If someone could direct any of the other ideas, don't pitch that one. And she picked that one and got through and made her film because of that. So that's sort of the main two things I look for, is sort of a why me and a strong character arc.
Right. Well, just to touch briefly again on the character arc, like, I guess knowing how it starts, the inciting incident, you know, like what precipitates that hero journey, if you like, and then how it ends. Well, what happens in the middle? Like, very often a lot of scripts fall down, like in like the second act. Like, do you feel that it's always a good idea to have a very clear idea, like as a creator, like what happens in the middle?
Yeah. Less important in a pitch because you have so little time. Like, to some degree, you can yada, yada, yada to the end. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you should do that, but capturing why it's exciting right off the bat with an incredible inciting incident, giving us you don't have to give us every single beat that gets you to the end. I think actually the worst pitches are the ones that I call the and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. That is death. You shouldn't do that. what you should be doing is painting the emotional picture of the journey. So you don't have to go through every beat of the story. You just have to go through the turning points of the story. So there was a person whose life was like this. Then suddenly this happened. And oh my God, everything changed. And it got really hard for them. Here's some examples of the things that happened to them along the middle of that journey that are the most interesting bits. And in the end, they made this mistake, they learned this lesson, and they ended up this way. That's the basics of all you need to cover. Now that's, like you said, that's a hero's journey arc. You may have a different type of arc. There's many different ways of doing it. But you don't have to, you will fail if all you're doing is pointing out every scene in order. Instead, you should be pointing out the emotional highs and lows of what your character goes through, or if you don't have a protagonist, what your audience will be experiencing. If your film's more experimental and doesn't have a traditional hero's journey or 3 acts, you still need to paint. The audience will start feeling this, and then they will feel this, and then they will feel this, and finally they will feel this, so that we can kind of figure out what the experience of the film is going to be like, and we have faith that you're going to be able to pull that off.
Well, yeah, I mean, those two movies you just pitched right there, like I would definitely ask you to make them. Yeah, like that was, yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So in terms then of, I guess, more like the mechanics of in-person pitching, like what are your top 3 tips in terms of like presentation wise?
Yeah.
Like,
so you have 5 minutes in person, and then you have 5 minutes of questions with the jury afterwards. Of those 5 minutes, I would probably spend at the beginning maybe 30 seconds right off the top doing that who you are and what's unique about you that led you to create this story. Because if you do that right at the beginning, it'll likely capture our attention. Then you probably spend the next 3 minutes going through your story, sort of a minute an act, which leaves sort of a minute at the end. And in that last minute, you could touch on a few different things depending on your group. You could touch on who the rest of your crew is. You could touch on, generally there's one thing about each project that's ambitious, like how are you going to get a horse? And so addressing that right at the end, like, this is my team, they're an all-star team, and you're probably wondering how the hell we're going to get a horse. I already have the stable lined up. Those types of things. Just kind of what are the specifics of your project at the end. And then, or you could use that last minute to talk about, if you wanted to, more the execution of like, this is going to be really powerful because of the way I'm going to shoot it. And it's unlike anything you've seen before. The way I'm going to do it is like this. And that's going to be, really, really engaging for the audience. So that last, minute could be about execution. It could be about your team. It could be about what's difficult about your project. And then if you don't answer any of those specific questions, then I'm sure the jury will ask you about them afterwards. If the jury's asking you about what happens in your story in their 5 minutes, then you didn't pitch your story well enough. In 3 minutes, and you should practice this with 20 different people, you should pitch your story in 3 minutes to 20 different people, and then have them confirm that they understood what happened or they were interested in what happened. You should just rehearse until you can't fail on that point.
So in terms of anticipating like other jury questions, bearing in mind that if they ask you too many questions about your story, you possibly #pitch fail. Yeah, like
pitch learned. You learned you learned that you have more learning to do.
Yeah, which you did do in 2004, yeah. So that you came back in 2005 to make typical jury questions that you feel like people somehow seem to not anticipate preparing for, which are almost always asked.
Typical questions are that they'll pull apart anything that seems vague. So anything they didn't quite understand, they'll ask you to fill in. They'll ask if you haven't covered who your crew is, or if there's specific things about your show that needs specific crew, they'll ask who you have in mind. So even if they're not officially on board, having a list of crew in your mind of like, oh, well, I've worked with this person, I would ask them. I've talked to this person, they said they're interested if I move through. That type of stuff is really good to know. Having a clear idea of the biggest obstacles that you'll face. So if your thing is set on a summer's day and you're shooting in February, like what's your plan if it snows? Things like that are often the case. And then sometimes having a clear idea, it's often the toughest, but having a very clear idea of theme of like what it is that your movie's trying to say. Because I would say that the vast majority of the pitches that come through are half-baked ideas. They haven't written the script yet. They have an idea, they have an inciting incident, they have something they're passionate about, but they haven't really figured it out yet. They haven't really figured out the ending most usually. And the ending often is where the theme is expressed. It's sort of where what you're trying to say is said at the end, where the audience, when the credits roll, they have an emotional reaction to sort of the statement of what the film has just made them experience. And even if you haven't necessarily figured out the best ending, the more you can spend some time thinking about what it is you're at least trying to say, then you can extrapolate on that and kind of talk about it to the jury and get them excited about that theme as well.
Yeah, so almost like definitely have a treatment. Definitely at least have a treatment, if not like a first draft by the time you in person.
Yeah, I mean, like Stephanie was saying, basically the more work you've done, the better, in more of a better position you'll be to be able to answer questions. The audience, the jury is basically trying to kind of sniff out how well baked is this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And that said, at this point, let's welcome back Stephanie and Kay. Here we go. Starting all the video for all the people. We could actually spotlight Stephanie and Kay as well as Zach. That would be great. Are you guys? Yeah, you guys are on. Okay, fantastic. Thank you all so much for like sticking around for this part as well. Like it's going to be a little bit of a group conversation. Like I do have a couple of starter questions. I don't know, Zach, like normally we would have done like all the guest intros like during the tech, but I know this is probably Zach, that's Stephanie. Zach, that's Kay. Hi. Yes.
Yeah,
Hi,
we've all
hi.
met.
Yeah, you guys are, and then you guys are really like legit, like all alumni as well. So it's totally a thing. So in terms of all of you being alumni, and so after completing a Crazy8s, like I know that it's been a little while for you, Zach, but after completing a Crazy8s, like what do you know now about the process that I guess you wish you knew going in? Like maybe this is a little bit more for Stephanie and Kay because they've gone through it sooner, but anyone that wants to answer, yeah.
I mean, you sort of already touched on it, but you need money. You need a lot of money. I mean, you don't need a ton of money, but you certainly can't just rely on what you're being given, and things really add up. So, you can reach out to other directors and ask them how much they ended up spending on their films. That's what I did, just to kind of gauge yourself and see how much you think you'll need.
Yeah, exactly. You need at least resources. Like I said in our other chat, overall, my entire film cost about $8,500. So I spent $7,500 on my film. And I think that's around average of what people spend. And I think a lot of people don't go into it knowing that if you get top 6, you will be spending your own money. You cannot make a film for $1,000 in this town. As much as people want to say you can, you cannot. And there's no point in pretending like you can.
No, totally. Like, yeah, like on average, I guess, like around like between 5 to 10, I would say is probably, yeah, like a fair estimate. Like Zach, like back in 2005, like what was that scene like in terms of like, I don't know if you can remember.
I don't remember spending any money. We literally, we were given $800, I think, right? That's what it was.
Back then, yeah, it was $800.
So we spent $800 on food, and everything else was, we had 100 extras for free. We had everything was for free, and yeah, we spent $800 on food. I think at the time it was like you weren't allowed to spend more than $800. Like that was like the rule. That's why it was like because we had the other crazy rule at the time. It was digital video was just starting, like I was saying, and right before it was 800 feet of film, and which is about half an hour of film. And so we had a mini DV tape that was half an hour long, and you were only allowed to record half an hour of tape, which is ridiculous. I think that stopped like after our year, but like it was pretty strict back then. It was like you have $800, you have half an hour of tape. And so, yeah, we didn't spend any money, but I don't doubt that now you have to. But yeah, at the time it was entirely, there's one of those things that happens when you don't have money, you end up not spending it because it's just not an option. So you just say no to the things that cost money. But yeah, basically we put it all into food so that we could feed people.
Well, that's one of the cardinal rules of indie is that if you can't like pay that much, then you definitely got to at least feed people, right? Like, yeah, the best pizza possible. At the
like
very
we
least.
reached out to like, wholesale food companies, like I can't remember their name, but like there's wholesale food companies that make like chips and salsa and stuff like that, and they just like gave us like leftovers from their wholesale factory, and like we just like got as many leftovers as we could to feed hundreds of people.
That is amazing. I mean, these days the equivalent would just be like a huge Costco run, and then you just kind of that's pretty much it. Yeah, I guess that's quite a bit of a difference. So like if anyone thinks that Crazy8s is crazy now, I guess back then it was truly crazy. And yeah, and like it's almost like you don't really know frustration until you've had to like edit on tape. It's yeah, it's totally like a thing. Which is actually a great segue. In terms of highlights or challenging Crazy8s moments, like are there any that you guys want? And bearing in mind that some of the attendees, some of them may have pitched before, some of them may never have pitched at all or to Crazy8s at all. What would you like to tell them in terms of highlights or challenges or both?
Well, I'd like to highlight Kay because I was on the jury those 7 times that she pitched. And got through, and she really grew as someone who is as an artist. So I think Stephanie was one and done, but I think that it's more common. I meet a lot of filmmakers that pitch and then don't get in their first pitch or their second pitch, and they basically go, well, fuck Crazy8s. And I meet them at the party and they're like, well, I pitched and you guys didn't like me, so I'm never pitching again. And then I'm like, are you insane? You got into the top 12. Like you beat out 200 people to get to the top 12. Like, and you're going to take that as a, we hate you. And so there's often times where I find filmmakers and I'm like, you need take what you learned from that first pitch and come in again. And the fact you got that far is a sign that you were doing really well. And take that knowledge and come back. And, Kay is a great example of that. And there's several other filmmakers that then came back after I encouraged them, and they were their project was much stronger from the lessons that they had learned.
Yeah.
And they got through.
If I can add to that, my first time in top 12, when we learned who was top 6, Crazy8s had decided to do it as a live party because it was right before COVID.
Oh,
so
right, yeah.
The Fox, and you learned whether or not you were top 6 in person. And so if I could come back and keep on pitching after crying in front of a crowd because I didn't get top 6 and still pitch, you can come back another year if you didn't get top 40 or didn't get top 12 and pitch again. If I cried in public because I didn't film didn't get,
and I was the one who made her cry. So there you go.
Yeah, so keep on trying.
It's really some grievances being aired here. It's good.
Totally, and what are announcements and awards type things without a little bit of drama, right? I know, like yeah. But like Stephanie, did you want to add anything you want to add to that at all?
We're talking about highlights and challenges.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do a highlight. So we as I was envisioning this sequence in the middle of our film, I just kept thinking about it with this certain song. And so I went to one of my producers and I was like, we got to find something kind of like this song from Queen Herbie. We'll never get that song because she's this big independent artist, LA based, like there's no way we'll ever do it. And my producer was just like, I'll get it for you. And she did. And it took a long time, and it took a lot of like tenacity on Nick's part and just writing a lot of letters, and it was sort of down to the wire whether or not we'd really get and we had, you know, a version cut with it, version cut without it, and we ended up getting it in the end. So I mean, you know, you hear a lot of people say this is your opportunity to sort of go big and pull in favors, and you have the label of Crazy8s behind you to say, you know, it's this incredible filmmaking incubator that happens in Vancouver, and you know, encouraging new voices, and that it gets people's attention. So you know, the queen herself sort of like read our pitch to her, and she was into it. She was into what our film was saying, and so she let us have it at a highly discounted rate that broke our budget completely still, but it was worth it. So you know, believe in the impossible, I guess, is my point.
Right. Yeah. So basically, dream big and go as big as you wanna, and then see what shakes out. Because Crazy8s is a thing. It's been around for 24 years, and it's a thing. And like I guess Zach was saying, even back in 2005, it was a thing to do.
Oh yeah, it was by far the biggest thing in the city at the time. I would also build on what you're saying, which is you really do have to push yourself to become in the top 6. Like if you think of amazingly talented directors, hundreds of them coming up with ideas, the 6 that get through are usually the ones that are pretty daring in some way, that are really pushing the envelope in some way. It's not a competition where sort of being safe gets you very far. You really have to come up with an idea that people go, well, that's impossible, you couldn't do that, or we could never show that, and then explain to the jury that you can pull it off and that it will be great. Because if you don't really do that, you'll kind of get lost in the middle.
No, for sure. Yeah, like that speaks exactly to what you were saying, that the jury, the in-person jury particularly, because it's in person, like they are looking to sniff out like any vagueness or any hint at all that you may not be 100% on your story, which then puts a seed of doubt. Can they actually execute this? Will they finish? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, okay. So we do have a few questions. Once again, guys, like anyone that's still here, yeah, we do have like 27 participants that stuck it out to the end. So that, yeah, so we've got an audience, guys. If you have any questions specific for either Zach, Stephanie, or Kay, like please, when you type into the Q&A box, just say for Stephanie, for Zach, for Kay, so that we know that it's specific to a person. So right now we do have a question: can one person or team send 2 submissions? The short answer is yes, but with a different primary applicant. So yes, you can be part of a couple of teams that are submitting, as long as you're not like the primary applicant for both of those. And the next question is, how much gore, blood, or violence can be shown on screen? Can we have it at the level of an 18A or 14A movie? I'm going to go with yes. Like there have been definitely some extremely, yeah. So
there's no censorship on that at all.
Yeah, literally. So the screening, yeah, you'll see some pretty interesting stuff at the screening sometimes. Short answer, yes. The next question is, I know no animation, but is CGI element okay? Like a CGI spider that is already rigged and built, and there are VFX folks in my back pocket to animate it. Again, short answer, yes. Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
As long as you can explain to the jury how you're going to pull it off in the time allowed, it's totally fine.
Yeah, that's true. Was there not like a spider movie? Like I think like 2 or 3 years ago. Yes.
And just to quickly tell a story of that one, when they did their in-jury pitch, they walked into the room with a small terrarium in their hand. And everyone was like, what the fuck? And then they like, sorry, I don't know if you can swear on this Zoom, but and then as they walked into the room, they tripped and the top went flying off and they skidded right at Mayumi. I think it was Mayumi. And she screamed and like fell out of her chair, like freaking out that they had just thrown a spider at her, and it was a fake spider. And it was just to get the like mood set for.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome, actually. Like I would have fully bought it and then have been like, oh, then I would have really bought it. You know, yeah. Like yeah. No, for sure. Okay, so the next question, do in-person jurors watch the video pitches before the in-person pitch session? My understanding is that typically no, and I think Zach, like, you can speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, no, we don't watch them at all. Some years we don't watch any of them. The only time we watch them is sometimes there's like two projects we're debating between at the deliberation stage, and sometimes it's usually like some visual element that we're like not sure if the team's gonna be able to pull it off. And sometimes the staff will say, well, they actually demonstrated that in their video pitch, so, and then they'll bring it up to show it to us. But there's been times where seeing the video pitch has convinced us to go with the team, and there's been times where seeing the video pitch, we looked at it and went, oh, that was awful. We should, and then have not picked the team. So I wouldn't say that it's a big deterrent. It's not a big specific factor, but generally what's great about the Crazy8s, I think, is it's one of the few competitions that really comes down to an in-person pitch. And as you grow as director, that's basically how you work. That's how you get your job, is in-person pitching. So you might send some materials and stuff ahead of time, but that will never lead to booking the job or selling the project. So you really do need to put a lot of thought into that in-person pitch, and the people that do really excel and will excel through their whole careers.
Right, yeah, and basically the video pitches, if you guys watch them at all, are really only as tiebreakers almost, right? Like it's like a 11th hour tiebreaker. It's like, we can't decide, let's just see if this will help, right? Okay, yeah, no, thank you. That's really good to know as well. For like, I literally started at Crazy8s like September 1st. So, like, I've been a fan for a long time, and I've pitched myself, like, and made it past like to in person a couple of times. But yeah, so hitting the ground running here. So I know. Thank you all for your patience with me while I, kind of navigate this.
Right.
These
Doing a great job.
Thank you. You guys too, like, you guys have been so great. Okay, so we do have a couple more questions. Let me see. Can you be a first-time director, assuming you have previous experience in other areas such as writing and producing? Like, I know for sure that the answer to this one is yes. You can certainly be a first-time director. What are some other ways to grab attention in the pitches that stand out? So really anyone that wants to answer.
I mean, like I said, for like the in-person pitches, I brought cookies once, I brought flowers. Yeah.
We had some props. We had the Barbie. We were dressed mildly equestrian themed. I mean, it all does come down to the strength of your story and the strength of your pitch ultimately, but these little things don't hurt. Bring a tarantula, being a fake tarantula, I guess, works.
Yeah, building on what Stephanie said, I would say none of those things will ever make the decision, but they will make it more memorable. They will also kind of perk up the room, I think, because if you imagine the jury is sitting for 2 days straight seeing 40 pitches, 10 minutes a pitch, it can be quite exhausting, and it can be a little hard to keep it all straight in your head. So doing small things like that is helpful, just to sort of wake the room up. And also when we're going backwards and thinking about them, it helps sort of keep elements, memorable. So, I wouldn't get too, it won't be the thing that if your story sucks, it won't make a difference. But I have seen that over the years, there is a strong correlation between the teams that are super prepared and have really good stories and come into the room with things that make them memorable. It's generally the same group of people, that there's a certain level of preparation in the material that also goes into the pitch that all sort of happens together.
And to add on that, I think this might just be my very pragmatic and sort of nihilistic sense of life in general, but like, while this is a creative competition, you also kind of have to think of it as terms of like a business or an interview. So what would be something that is eye-catching? How is a way to put yourself over that? While I do think that the strength of your story is one of the most important things, how you present yourself, how you dressed, the extras that you have, whether you make like a bulletin board with photos, if you have actors and all of that, think of it like it's an interview. It's not just a creative talking to a creative at a bar pitching ideas. You want money. You're basically asking Crazy8s for money. So you have to be professional and like that type above of however creative you are.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah, so prep hard, like prep good, and like be professional, and the judges will kind of go, yeah, okay. And it certainly doesn't hurt to perk up the room, I guess, because you know, adjudication panel that is awake and up and at 'em is probably a lot better
Yeah,
than
I
one
mean,
that is.
in my, you know, I've pitched thousands of times in LA, and I've had people fall asleep while I'm pitching them. So like, you need to, it's just a good skill for like, in general in life, is to keep thinking of ways of engaging with the people that you're speaking to.
Well, I am mindful of time. We do have 2 questions right now, like that are in the blocks. So we'll definitely get through those, and then we'll start to wrap up a little bit. If anyone has any other further questions with regards to process or anything, once again, like please feel free anytime to email submissions at crazy8s.film. And also there is a lot of information on our Film Freeway, filmfreeway.com/crazy8s. So the next question is, how do you deal with unconscious bias when adjudicating pitches? Be it gender, age, background, etc. It's an excellent question, and I believe this would be for Zach.
Yeah, great question. I think one of the things that Crazy8s does really well is have a super diverse jury. So like the jury will be made up of all the different ways that people can be unique, you know, experience, gender, age, ethnicity, sexuality. You know, we pretty much will always have every base covered by at least one person in the jury. So that's one way of protecting against that. It's been my experience that really over the last 5 years, as much as all the projects that have been chosen have been super diverse in all the different ways that a project can be diverse, we've basically hadn't had to do it on purpose. Just by picking the best projects, it naturally has happened. Very, you know, we might debate it when we're picking number 5 or 6, like just to see how we're doing. But in general, the group that comes in the top 40 to pitch is naturally super diverse as far as experience and age and ethnicity and sexuality, and the cream of that group tends to be diverse naturally. So it hasn't been something that luckily over the last sort of 5 years has been much of an issue. But even still, we make sure to have a jury that's very diverse to try and make sure that each person has a perspective that is balanced by the other perspectives that are in the room.
In that case, I guess I could throw this back to Stephanie and Kay, like from the jury perspective, from Zach's perspective, like this is how they're addressing these equity, diversity, and inclusion perspectives. From you guys' perspective, as the pitchers, how do you guys feel about any potential unconscious bias? Are you guys feeling super uncomfortable in that room, or how are you guys dealing with it?
No, I think kind of on the opposite end, just to be incredibly pragmatic, the state that the film industry is in right now, obviously me being a female and a person of color probably helped, because that is just the way it is. And I know that I have friends who might be cis and might be white and might be male and feel like they will never get into Crazy8s. Maybe that is the case because there is an unconscious bias towards those stories, but hopefully you just are passionate enough and that you have a good enough pitch that people get engaged in your story otherwise. But I do think it's kind of, you can't say that there is no unconscious bias, because that's what an unconscious bias is. You just aren't aware of it. And there probably is but like, you have to think about that when you have a short and you're submitting it to festivals. Even festivals have their own frame that they want to present. They have their own types of stories that they want to present. because that's what they want. I do think it might be a little bit advantageous if Crazy8s kind of said what they wanted in that terms. Like if they are looking for community-based stories, if they're looking for character-based stories, if they're looking for this, that might actually help people who are deciding whether or not to pitch, because, well, for me, the entry fee isn't that much, but the $50 might be a lot for a person who's like, oh, I'm going to pitch, but their story never had a chance of getting in anyways. And that's a little bit of a waste for them.
Stephanie, is there anything that you'd like to add to the conversation around this question? It's okay if you don't, but if you do.
Yeah, I don't honestly have much to say. I mean, I think as soon as you, as Zach was saying, as soon as you walk into the room in the in-person jury, it's an incredibly diverse room. So, you know, everybody's going to, you know, and as Kay said, we all have unconscious bias, but there's enough diverse unconscious bias in the room that, you know, a diverse 6 usually make it to the top, I think. Yeah.
Cool.
Also, the last 3 years, the majority of the directors who've pitched have been women, just naturally, like, you know, by like a few percent. So like just from a gender balance perspective, like, and then in like last year, I think the percentage of white males like that pitched in the top 40 was, I think, below 20%. Just as far as the projects that the amount of people applying at the very like open level matched that diversity level as well. So like from a unconscious bias of like filtering which projects get selected, the open end of the funnel of what's applying, which the only barrier there to entry, like Kay's saying, is the $50 entry fee, is massively more representational than the film industry is, and is pretty and lines up pretty closely to the population as far as the BC's population. The open end of the funnel that's coming in at the the 200 so projects that do the video applications match the demographics of BC pretty closely, and that kind of is true all the way to the very end. So it's a great question. It's something we definitely have put a lot of attention on, but it's sort of great that to some degree it seems to just work itself out because of the quality of the projects end up being representational anyway.
Yeah, and Crazy8s, like just to address quickly, like hey, like what you were saying, Crazy8s, from the impression that I've always had, like ever since I've started going to the screenings and also like even pitching myself, is that there isn't necessarily, like you can't really say, you know, like how there's some festivals that have a very definite mandate or mission almost, and they have a very definite, you know, like we're about community or that kind of thing. Like I don't think Crazy8s is really like that. It's like if you had a community-based type of film that that was, you know, that ticked all the boxes that Zach was talking about, like once you get to the in-person stage, or that you pitch great in a video pitch, it's almost like that would at least make it through to a stage where, you know, like the judges will be debating, you know, like who we go forward with. You know, so that's
only,
kind of
like we've done experimental dance movies. Like the only thing is like I think not documentary, not animation, but other than that, literally any genre or subject matter, if you're passionate about it, would and you can get the jury excited about it, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and just one more question before I do like a wrap up question. How many teams on average pitch in the recent few years? Well, in terms of video pitches anyway, like between 100 to 200. So it's not a nothing number. So that just emphasizes again, like what's pretty much all of the guests have been saying, which is like definitely prep again, rehearse again, and definitely know your story, your lead character arc and your beginning, middle, and end, especially your beginning and the end, like pretty well, and like come up with something to wake up the room, like if you make it to the in-person pitch stage, I guess. And so it's like to some, like quickly, like if any of you want to just share with the folks that are left, and there's still like 23 people left here, what would you say is your biggest take home from your Crazy8s experience that is still valuable to your career today? Like I know Stephanie and Kay, like it's pretty close for you guys, but what would you say is your biggest take home?
I have two that I definitely learned through Crazy8s. One was storyboards. For me, I will always storyboard the heck out of things because not only does it help just help in the entire process of putting it together. But on the day, especially in a process like Crazy8s, made it really easy to drop shots, because ultimately you may run out of time, and having my storyboard right there, being able to see that visualized, because I'm still a new director. So I'm still, you know, I'm still working on being able to edit in my head. Having my storyboard there was super, super helpful. And then don't just have one producer. If you can help it. I had 4 and they were all full out on the experience. Mine was it was a bigger film. I will admit we were pretty ambitious, but like it really helped having that many producers. So if you can wrangle in a couple other producers, you won't regret it.
Same. Mine was like, we had 1 location. I still had like 4 producers. So producers are, have more producers. You can never have too many producers. Give them different tasks. It's great. I think my biggest takeaway from this entire experience is the supportive nature of the indie community in Vancouver. Even once I was like in top 40, I had people messaging me on Facebook and on Instagram saying that they wanted to help me on my short. When I was top 12, even more, and even on ones that didn't get to top 6, I'm now trying to get the one that I pitched last year that didn't get through, get that done with 2 of the producers, 2 of the old Crazy8s producers, trying to get that done just because there's so much support in this industry. And I think, yeah, I wish we could talk more with each other and have more money and grants to help create everyone's story. And Crazy8s, I wish Crazy8s was just one of those aspects, avenues that people can take. But at the moment, it is an amazing time. And also the party, I have a lot of social anxiety, so I was so scared of going to the party, especially when it was my short, because I'm just like very, despite being an actor and being a creative, I'm just so anxious of people coming up and talking to me. But it was a lot of fun to have the in-person party. Yeah.
I totally feel you on that. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you know, you're ED, like you're used to talking. And I'm like, yes, I am used to talking. But you know, like sometimes you still, it's almost like that little bit of that anxiety. It's almost like it's just always there and you're just always dealing with it, right? But so yeah, so I totally feel that. Zach, like, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? I know it's been a hot minute, but again, yeah, is there anything?
I think basically what Kay said is what I was going to say, which is that it's what makes Crazy8s so great is the indie community of Vancouver. It's basically the heart of the community, and it's an amazing opportunity as you move through it, because you're sort of spotlighted as the next generation that the community should pay attention to. But even if you're not selected, just being in the middle of all of this Crazy8s stuff over the years really just puts you at the center of the beating heart of the Vancouver indie film scene, and that's what makes it great. And that was true 17 years ago when I was involved, and it's still true now.
And on that note, thank you so much, Stephanie, Kay, and Zach, for like being our guests like today, and then like for all the participants as well for being here. Just bearing in mind that there is an early bird deadline coming up, guys. It is September 26th. So if you want like a little bit of a break on the registration fee, get your registration in now, and you can submit your video pitch anytime up to the final deadline of October the 19th. Again, that's filmfreeway.com/crazy8s. If you have any questions, just ask us. Submissions at crazy8s.film. And also watch your inbox, because you could win a random draw for one of 2 free video pitch registrations. This is like just one way of kind of saying thank you for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. And thank you all again for attending, guys. Stephanie, Kay, like Zach, like so grateful. And like looking forward to like you know, like Stephanie and Kay, like your film's journeys as they go along. Like I know like they're starting to hit like the festival circuit now. And like Zach, like thank you for taking the time, because it's not like you don't have stuff. Yeah, no, not at all. So I guess see you all at if you guys are here, Zach, if you're in town, you know, like see what the in-person pitches, right? Yeah, I'll see you there, Zach. And also at the screening and gala, April 15th, 2023. Just stay connected with us, guys, and thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.